If you're not familiar with how toxic the school I taught at was, here's a podcast, and here's my blog post about it. I started this blog to document my healing journey and to just share my opinions and thoughts on education-related topics and personal causes within that I am passionate about. One of those is teacher respect and our right to safety. One thing I will always regret when I finally decided I was going to go through with quitting was giving 2-week notice. I was 22 and just thought 2 weeks notice, that's what you do when you quit a job. I timed it so that one of those weeks was going to be during our Thanksgiving break, which was a week long, so that I only had to wait it out for a week. That last week is a blur. I think I probably have just completely blocked it out in my memory just because I was going through the motions. It wasn't even particularly bad, just the same psychological trauma hell I'd been experiencing my entire time teaching there, but I sure couldn't wait for that Friday. When Friday came around, I taught first, fourth, and sixth period. I chickened out telling my first period that today was my last day. My anxiety was overwhelming to the point of having a panic attack, being numb, pretty much the entire class period. My second hour, my worst class, I couldn't get to shut up for a moment before they left for passing period long enough to take the 30 seconds to tell them collectively. My third hour was pissed off at me and cursed me out on my way out, causing me to start fourth period in tears I couldn't force back in. I ended up telling my fourth period at the beginning of the class period. They were upset too, but thankfully didn't lay into me, especially since I was already hysterically crying. They had empathy for me and understood the school was a difficult environment for anyone. I chose not to tell my last teaching period because by then, I was completely emotionally spent for the day. My would-be boyfriend came and helped me clean out my classroom at the end of the day, and I haven't stepped foot in a 10-mile radius of that school since. The district has, notice my present tense, things haven't gotten better this year, a 90% turnover rate for all staff, not just teachers, and I was the fourth teacher to quit that school year by the time I quit. I remember getting staff emails reminding us that cursing students and using physical punishments such as wall sitting were not appropriate classroom punishments. I was flabbergasted that any adult who would think either of those things was okay would be hired to any school anywhere, but I digress. I remember my principal asking when I was going to do a real play after spending weeks rehearsing after school for a virtual one. Our school's COVID numbers were still high enough to quarantine entire grade levels. Enforcing mask wearing was not supported. One member of the administration straight up refused to wear one. I remember submitting what I wanted to spend my program budget for the year one by the end of August, deadline in October, only to have the financial secretary just choose to not do her job and put in the order for my things that were really needed for starting a new drama program, so I didn't get a single thing, out of a $2,500 budget. I remember having to fight for several months after I quit because I had never received the stipend I was supposed to receive for doing those rehearsals after school while I was employed. I remember bringing my concerns about student situations and classroom situations to admin, only to receive empty promises for support time and time again until eventually I gave up and decided that there was nothing inherently wrong with me as a teacher, not claiming I was perfect either, but a lot wrong with the situation I was in, and I was determined to get out. I remember being forced to monitor entire grade levels by myself because other teachers consistently refused to show up for their duty or otherwise pull their weight, and how this behavior was not dealt with by administration either. I remember 3 to 5 fights on a daily basis, thankfully none in my classroom walls, although I prevented at least 2. This is by no means an exhaustive list. When I called my union, I asked if the district would hold my teaching license/certification through the remainder of the school year if I quit. They told me that they couldn't tell me for sure because they'd seen it happen, but they've also seen it not happen. They advised me not to ask anyone who worked for the district, especially upper admin, because it could trigger the district to go ahead and hold it. I sent my 2 weeks notice the next day. That's how badly I wanted out. They ended up not holding my certification, but I couldn't check with anyone, so I was forced to assume that they were holding it in sub. I interviewed for a few teaching jobs for the 22 to 23 school year, but unfortunately I didn't have a lot of decent options left. I wasn't about to jump at the first available job again. My content area is super niche. I substitute taught, not in the district I taught in, only at schools I knew had it together from previous years subbing, while taking my teacher's paid teachers store to the next level and getting a ton of therapy. In hindsight, I should have just packed up my classroom one day after school about mid-September and sent in my immediate resignation via email when I got home. I should have skipped my meeting with my head principal, who cluelessly asked, "Oh wow. Well, we're just surprised and wondering what we could have done?" The day before my last day. You could have done literally anything but pop off, I guess. To be really honest, I shouldn't have told my students I was leaving. Treat your teachers like they treated me, and don't expect them to stay. Frankly, they were old enough to know better than to act how they did, but the school was not set up for me to be able to discipline consistently, and most of the parents didn't give a SHT or were so ineffective at parenting that calling home was a waste of both of our time. I should have quit way sooner so I could have maybe made it to another school before too much of the year had gone by. I could have saved myself so many sleepless nights, nightmares, stress, depression, anxiety, and feelings of complete inadequacy when what was completely nuts was this environment the district calls a school. It used to be closed, by the way, because it was so rough. It used to be on the dangerous schools list. Had I known it was that bad, I never would have applied there. In hindsight, if you're thinking about quitting teaching, give the respect the school and district gives you. Is the health insurance really worth the toll chronic intense stress is taking on your body? You shouldn't have to be on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, etc. because of your school environment alone. If a district or school wants to retain high-quality teachers, they will create the environment to do so. It is not your fault. It is not all on teachers to make our public schools great. It can't be, and that mentality is not working. I know the pay isn't worth the effects teaching at a school like the one I've described have on your body, mind, and spirit. All students, regardless of zip code, socioeconomic status, race, religion, gender, identity, etc., deserve a high-quality education. I'm just not willing to personally use myself as a sacrificial lamb. Not for any job. I'm not willing to martyr myself for capitalism and a state that doesn't want to fund anything that couldn't help anyone other than white, straight, cis, Christian, boomer men. Teaching is political. Get involved in the fight for public education. I should have run at the first sign that things were not normal. Unfortunately, I bought into gaslighting myself into staying. I'm disappointed that I put up with that as long as I did. I'm a strong person, and I love my students, and I believed in myself enough to think I could do it. I could. But for me to be able to look at myself in the mirror and enjoy my life and be able to actually live my life, which isn't school, quitting was not a choice. It was a requirement if I ever expected my physical and mental health to be remotely functional. The thing about quitting teaching is that, in the context of the cosmic universe, when they do let teachers go, y'all already know it's completely without notice. People don't get the chance to say goodbye to their students. Even a teacher that struck students with a flip-flop wasn't fired, just put on administrative leave, but it's a point I wanted to make. Give the respect the school and district gives you. Why should teachers have to be the bigger person? Because of professionalism? I call bull. Respect is a two-way street.
Thank you so much for listening.